I found myself heading towards the clearing, a large area devoid of cover. The emptiness of the space was almost palpable, like a void waiting to be filled. The village lay just beyond, tantalizingly within my grasp. But I knew that to enter this area without a well-thought-out strategy would be a death sentence. I stopped at the edge of the clearing, the weight of my decision pressing down on me, and took a moment to gather my thoughts. But I also knew that Greyhold was not far behind, and the final confrontation was looming. The battle was not yet won. I had to be ready, for everything depended on what I did next. The cold wind bit at my skin as I hunkered down behind the trees, carefully hidden from view. The clearing ahead was bathed in the silvery light of the full moon, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with anticipation. The sound of Greyhold's heavy breathing reached my ears, accompanied by the soft crunch of snow under his paws as he paced back and forth, his wolf form sniffing the air, seeking my scent. Earlier in the day, the villagers had crisscrossed the fields with my clothing, spreading my scent to confuse and mislead the werewolves. It was a gamble, a strategic move that now seemed to pay off. Greyhold growled in frustration, his keen wolf nose unable to pinpoint my location. I could sense his confusion, his instincts at war with his intellect, as he struggled to reconcile the conflicting information. Minutes turned into an eternity as I waited, my body tense, my mind sharp, ready to seize the moment. Greyhold's frustration grew, his growls turning into howls of anger, his movements becoming more agitated. And then it happened. With a sudden, deliberate movement, Greyhold began to shift back to his human form. The transformation was agonizingly slow, his body writhing and contorting as it changed shape, his face twisted in concentration, his mind focused on the task at hand, attempting to use his human intelligence to locate me. It was the moment I'd been waiting for. As soon as Greyhold's transformation was complete, I burst from my hiding spot, each stride filled with adrenaline and determination. The shock of my sudden appearance registered first in Greyhold's eyes, a split second of disbelief widening his pupils as he realized that I had outmaneuvered him. Those precious few moments were critical. My heart pounded in my chest as I sprinted across the clearing, knowing that every second counted. The expression on Greyhold's face shifted from surprise to understanding, his mind racing to comprehend what had just happened. The gears of his intellect began to turn, and I could almost see the realization dawn in his eyes. But human comprehension was not enough. He needed his wolf form's speed and strength to catch me, and that meant another transformation. With a growl of frustration, he began to shift back into his wolf form, the transformation agonizingly slow in his haste. Muscles knotted and twisted, bones cracked and reshaped. Fur sprouted from bare skin, all in a matter of seconds that felt like hours. Each second of his transformation was a second gained for me, a second closer to freedom. My feet pounded the ground, the cold air whipping past my face as I ran with everything I had. Behind me, I could hear Greyhold's furious howl as his transformation completed, a sound filled with rage and determination. But by then, I had already gained valuable distance, the edge I needed to reach the village. The game was still far from over, and Greyhold's lupine form was fast and relentless. But in those crucial few seconds, I had seized an advantage, outsmarting and outmaneuvering the cunning werewolf. Now, all that remained was to hold on to that lead, to push my body to its limits, and to make it to the village before Greyhold could catch me. Behind me, I could hear Greyhold's furious howl, the sound filled with rage and betrayal. But I didn't dare look back. didn't dare waste a single second. The village was in sight, just beyond the clearing. My goal, my salvation, almost within reach. I ran with everything I had, my lungs burning, my muscles screaming in protest. But I knew that I could not stop, could not falter. Greyhold was fast and relentless, and I could feel him closing the distance, his hot breath on my neck, his deadly claws ready to strike. The stakes were high, the game was intense, and the end was near. The final sprint to freedom, to victory, was underway, and I knew that I had to give it my all, to fight with everything I had. For the people of the village, for those who had suffered and lost, for myself, and for the chance to put an end to this cruel and twisted game once and for all. My lungs were burning, every muscle screaming in protest as I neared the village, the very edge of safety. I could feel Greyhold's hot breath on my neck, hear the thunderous pounding of his paws on the ground behind me. The distance closed rapidly, his incredible speed almost a match for my desperate flight. I leaped forward, putting everything into that final push when searing pain exploded across my back. Greyhold's claws had found their mark, slashing through fabric and skin as I tumbled to the ground, the cold earth jarring against my body. Greyhold was on top of me in an instant, his massive weight pinning me down, sharp claws poised to rip me to shreds. His hot, foul breath washed over my face as I looked into his wild, predatory eyes. But then he stopped. A strange calm settled over Greyhold, and his eyes flicked past me towards the village. I followed his gaze, and there they were, the villagers, huddled together in fear and anticipation, watching our life and death struggle. Among them were the children I had played with, the snowman we had built standing tall in their midst. Slowly, realization began to dawn. I had made it into the village. I had won. The pressure on my back lessened as Greyhold's form began to shift, shrinking and reshaping until the humanoid figure of Greyhold stood before me. His face was an unreadable mask, but I could see a glimmer of something in his eyes, a mixture of annoyance and impressed respect. He extended a hand, helping me to my feet. "Congratulations," he said, his voice a low growl. "You are the first to win our game." I couldn't help but stagger back, still in a defensive stance, my body tense and ready to fight. But Greyhold simply nodded, acknowledging my victory, a strange pride in his eyes. "You have proven yourself worthy," he continued, his voice softening. "Your cunning, your bravery, your determination. You have bested us, and for that, you have earned our respect." The words were almost surreal, coming from the creature that had hunted me, that had sought to kill me. But I knew that Greyhold was a creature of honor, bound by the rules of the game, and he had held his end of the deal. Slowly, the tension began to ease, and the realization that I had survived, that I had won, began to sink in. The villagers erupted into cheers, their fear turning to joy as they celebrated my victory. Still trembling from the adrenaline of the chase, I approached Greyhold cautiously. The weight of his gaze was heavy, his eyes reflecting a mind that was both beastly and cunning. "You will stop these challenges," I ordered, my voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. "Your pack will cease attacking this village." Greyhold's lips twisted into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You have won our game, human," he said, his voice dripping with both respect and disdain. "We werewolves value strength and cunning, and you have proven yourself in both. Our agreement will be honored." "But what of the others?" I press, not quite believing his words. "What of your pack?" Will they all honor this agreement? A shadow passed over Greyhold's face, and for a moment he looked almost troubled. They will obey, he said finally, his voice firm. They will honor the pact as long as I lead them. You have my word. We stood there, two warriors who had battled to a standstill, each assessing the other. There was a strange connection between us, a mutual respect born of combat and survival. But beneath that respect lay a tension, a deep-seated animosity that neither of us could fully ignore. Then, a loud, agonized howl shattered the stillness of the night, echoing through the village and chilling my blood. We both turned, our eyes widening as a massive werewolf came hurtling towards the village, large shards of silver protruding from its body, its eyes wild with pain and rage. "Morrigan," Greyhold commanded, his voice filled with authority. "Stop! Obey me!" But the werewolf didn't stop. It didn't even slow down. It just kept coming, its focus fixed on me, its body a blur of motion as it leaped through the air, jaws open, claws extended. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. I could see the fury in Morrigan's eyes, feel the power of his body as he lunged at me. I could see the villagers, their faces pale with terror, frozen in place as they watched the scene unfold. I could see Greyhold, his face twisted with a combination of rage and concern, his body tensed, ready to intervene. But most of all, I could feel my own body, my own instincts taking over, propelling me into action, ready to face this new threat. My body ached with exhaustion, but there was no time to rest. Morrigan was relentless, driven by rage and pain, his every movement fueled by an all-consuming desire to kill. The villagers screamed in terror, scrambling to get out of the way, their eyes wide with fear as the massive werewolf lunged at me again and again. With each dodge, I could feel his claws grazing my skin, the sharp pain a stark reminder of just how close I was to death. I stumbled back, my legs wobbly, my breath ragged, but I knew I couldn't give in. I couldn't let Morrigan win. With a final, desperate leap, I dodged underneath him, my body twisting in midair as I summoned all my remaining strength to kick one of the shards of silver deep into his body. The sound of his scream was deafening, a howl of agony that echoed through the night as he collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing, his last breaths escaping in a ragged gasp. I stumbled over to the snowman, my body trembling, my vision blurred. I leaned against it, using it as a support as I looked up at Greyhold, his face a mask of fury, his eyes burning with rage. Without a word, he transformed, his body swelling, his muscles rippling as he became the wolf once more. With a howl of anger, he leaped towards me, his body a deadly missile, his eyes filled with a hunger for revenge. As I leaned against the snowman, my positioning no mere coincidence, I thrust my hand inside and found the familiar metal wrapped in leather. Time seemed to freeze as I gripped the cold, hard steel of my runic sword. With a swift pull, the sword came free, and the snowman collapsed around it, a shower of snowflakes accompanying the blade's gleaming emergence. My body moved on pure instinct, the moment etched in a terrifying clarity as I thrust the sword towards Greyhold's heart, his eyes wide with realization as the moonlight reflected off the deadly metal. I felt the impact, the resistance of flesh giving way to steel, the sudden shocking stillness as Greyhold's body went limp, the look in his eyes as he realized what had happened, the surprise, the confusion, the pain. He fell to the ground, his body lifeless, his eyes empty. The mighty Alpha, the leader of the pack, was dead. The village was silent, the only sound the ragged sound of my own breath as I looked down at the fallen werewolves, the cold realization sinking in. It was over. The battle was won. The village was safe. The villagers crowded around me, their faces lit with gratitude and relief, their voices raised in thanks and congratulations. But their joy did not reach me. My mind was already on the next battle, the next fight. The Alpha was dead, but the remaining werewolves were still a threat. With Greyhold gone, they would be free to descend upon the town once their traps were broken. The village's safety was a fragile thing, a delicate balance that could be shattered in an instant. I thanked the village for its hospitality, retrieving my tools and weapons and taking some new clothes. Then, without a backward glance, I made my way back into the wilderness, my mind focused on the task ahead. One by one, I tracked down and killed the remaining werewolves. Most were still trapped, their bodies ensnared in my cunning devices. Some were in their wolf forms, others were humanoid, their eyes wide with fear as they begged for forgiveness. I found no pleasure in their deaths, no satisfaction in their suffering. It was a grim task, a necessary evil, a duty that had to be done. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One remaining, the one that had been swept downriver. I followed the tracks, the uneven gait, the trail of blood. I found him in a small boathouse, his broken limbs evident, his face twisted with pain and fear. He was in his humanoid form, his eyes wide as he tried to untie the ropes of a boat, his movements slow and clumsy. I approached quietly, my footsteps silent, my heart cold. He looked up as I entered, his eyes filled with terror, his mouth opening to beg for his life. I did not hesitate. I did not waver. I ended it with a silver-tipped crossbow bolt to the head. There was no victory in his death, no triumph in his defeat. Only the grim satisfaction of a duty fulfilled, a promise kept. The village was safe, and that was all that mattered. I took the boat and made my way down the river, my body weary, my soul heavy. I knew that there would be more battles, more fights, more challenges. But I was ready. I was prepared. For I am Alistair Saxon, and the shadows are my domain. The darkness is my ally, the night my friend. I walk the path of the hunter, the way of the warrior, the road of the survivor. And I will not stop. Not until my mission is complete. Not until the last werewolf is dead. Not until the last threat is vanquished. I will fight on, no matter the cost, no matter the pain. And I will never surrender.